Greetings, folks. I know you're used to seeing me earlier in the morning. So welcome to the Dr. Kent Show. I'm Dr. John Taylor Kent. I last worked as a corrections psychologist. Before I got taken out health-wise, I was also targeted by the liberals. I had no idea as to how bad things were. Excuse me. So I had to experience it firsthand myself. And it's pretty bad. Now, before we get too far in this, what I want to tell you about is the fact that the international bankers behind all this mess, most of them are ascribed Jewry. They are attributed as being Jews. That's a characteristic. However, if we look carefully, we find out they're atheistic Jews. And there are real ones that really do support that faith. But there are fake ones, and the Bible tells us clearly that in Revelations 2:9 and 3:9, where it says, I know you who say you are Jews and are not. One of those verses says, but are of the synagogue of Satan. The other one says, I shall make you the synagogue of Satan. In 1929, after the Great Depression, one of the young bankers said that he thought he could figure it out. He thought he could figure out how to avoid such a Great Depression. He had that kind of insight, and he was a young, fairly innocent fellow. Well, his superiors hired him for the job. They gave him the task, they gave him a raise and the position, and at the end of 2 years he came back to them and he told them about, we just really basically have to unite the people. That's what his basic premise was. We can avoid going through depression if we have the people united. Senior bankers listened to him intently. And then after his presentation, they gave him a new position and a raise. And then one of the bankers, senior bankers, told him, as far as being able to join the people together, that was never going to happen. They said, these people, we have divided these people, and they will never unite. So they had already divided the nation before the Great Depression in a way that we would never be able to be united. So think about that for a minute. What does that mean? That means they did a psychological operation on us, a psyop, and they purposely worked both sides and divided us as best they could along these artificial lines, along these false dichotomies. Well, some of them aren't very false. Some of them it really is either or. But they divided the nation on purpose. And of course, this is 1929, 1931. FBI, the predecessor to the FBI, was founded in 1913. The banking system, the trap whereby they've bought and enslaved all of us here in the United States of America, that thing was sprung on us in 1913. Hell of a Christmas gift to give the country. A phony money system built on debt rather than honest money built on wealth, which allowed us to be independent of the rest of the world and allowed us not to have to fight wars. You can't get out of this war cycle as long as those bastards, the international banksters, are running the show. And there is a one world government, and it's run by the international bankers. You may not want to believe so, but that's the case. They actually planned and did the communist revolution from Manhattan. They took Russia over, and they murdered the Tsar on purpose to get back at the Tsar, because the Tsar and his grandfathers, had interfered in the United States of America when the Rothschild boys wanted to split the country up. At the beginning of the nation, the Russians helped us out and interfered. They were smarter than most, and they knew how valuable this place was. They had better insight than we had of ourselves. And then come the Civil War, the Tsar steps in and helps Abe Lincoln by stationing his navy in the east and the west, in San Francisco and in New York Harbor, keeping the other navies out so they couldn't invade us and divide us up the way they wanted to do it. Yes, we owe Russia a great debt. And here's the other part of the deal. They're our brothers. No more brother wars. I think we do away with the FBI as fast as possible. I think we send the military in and have the military arrest them all and seize everything. And then triage through it. Examine it forensically. Bring each branch of military intelligence to bear on it, doing an independent audit of the FBI. And then we can compare their notes. And from that, we should be able to discern the truth. They shouldn't be able to hide it too well from each other unless there's a big conspiracy again. But what can we do in the meantime? Well, I think the number one thing we can do is we can stop using their phony money, the means whereby they have enslaved us. What do we do about it? Start using silver dimes, silver coins, $50 and silver dollars. Get used to carrying those around and negotiating and doing your business deals in constitutional currency, in honest money. And we will have to allow this fiat system to exist at the same time for a while. But I think there's a few things we ought to do. The first thing is we ought to realize that what the real nature of this beast and what's going on and what our politicians are doing to us isn't called inflation. They give it that made-up fancy name. It's really theft. It's stealing from the past and stealing from the future. It's theft. It's not merely inflation. It's theft. They have stolen everything in this nation. And they're going to keep stealing, and they're going to rob us of our retirements. They're going to steal everything. They are going to leave us, as the senior Rothschild told his sons when he was on his deathbed, Remember, the Gentiles get nothing. Nothing, I say. They had this great plan. They've been doing it in long-range planning. They even formed the Chinese communists. They even protected them. One time they ordered our 7th Fleet between the island of Formosa, or Taiwan, and mainland China. Why? Because Chiang Kai-shek was armed to the teeth, and he was going to invade, and he was going to beat the Chi-Coms. He was going to win. There was no way he could lose, until our wonderful people in the State Department got the president to order that the 7th Fleet be stationed between mainland China and the island. So we stopped the Taiwanese. We interfered in the fate of those peoples a long time ago. Your FBI isn't just responsible for this Chi-Com Joe in the White House. They're also responsible for the 19 children dying in the Oklahoma City bombing, which they basically did. And 9 months after the bombing, they escorted out their bomber Andy Straussmeyer, I believe was his name, through Canada so he could go safely back home to Germany 9 months after the event. The FBI isn't there to solve any crime or enforce anything. They're there to babysit politicians so they don't get in trouble, and they're there to make sure that the big guys don't get caught in any of their criminal activities, including Las Vegas. The FBI was there to misdirect things so that it never was investigated properly. And your jackass president at the time, yes, he was a jackass at the time. He's still a jackass. But you're going to get him for president again. And this time, he's going to have a come to Jesus moment in a big way. He's still the best guy for the job. Isn't that ironic? We need to get our nation back. We need to restore the Constitution. We need to get rid of the Patriot Act. We need to cut out all of these spying mechanisms. All of these high-tech companies, including the telephone companies, have secret contracts to spy on us and manipulate us. We have to rise up. I don't know how we can do that. I'm not saying rise up and take arms. That may happen. Certainly, if the need for self-defense arises, do that. Defend yourself. Yahweh blesses self-defense. Our first revolution was not a rebellion. It was a war of self-defense, which Yahweh blessed because it was a war of self-defense. Right now, Yahweh has sentenced America, and the sentence is rather harsh. All these jackasses are there because it's his will. Isn't that horrible? That we're so bad, we get jackasses, horrible people as presidents. I think it's pretty bad. As far as interest rates goes, I think we have to come to an agreement and agree upon a standard. So let me propose that standard to you. I think that the average citizen, the average retiree, the average person in high school who might have a part-time job, the average person who's going to college and working his way through, the average person who's graduated college and just getting started and putting away a nest egg to buy a house, I think they should be earning 5% on their savings. So I think that's the guideline that we should set, that a person who saves gets awarded 5% on their savings accounts across the board. Higher for other savings that are locked in longer. Higher for savings that incur a little bit more exposure and risk. But you need to know that this entire system is a bunch of frauds that we have going, especially our mortgages. I believe those are stamped on the back for deposit, and they are depositing those as if they were assets out of thin air. Our promise to pay becomes an asset for them, and they are allowed to lend out fractal banking against those notes sevenfold, unless they are marked for deposit without recourse, in which case I believe they can lend out tenfold. Now, we have to put some buying power back in the dollar and try to hold it steady. So I propose that we require the banks to have more cash on hand for what they have out there. That will contract the money supply slightly, thereby giving more value to each one of those phony fiat monopoly notes that the central bank has issued, that our Congress has stolen from future generations, and they are stealing from the past generations. They're stealing from our retirements as fast as they can. So they steal from both. And I think we have to make this federal government go back to honest money, silver, gold, nickels, copper pennies. I think we have to make them go back to things that cannot be inflated away, that can't be counterfeited. There's a lot more we can do. The FBI needs to go away. These other federal agencies that have been created need to go away so we can bring the budget down under control. I told you in another video earlier the strategic intervention, which I came up with, basically off Eustace Mullins' ideas. I think we have to take it a little bit further. I think that we have to go to my idea of enforcing the original 13th Amendment, stripping all British accreditation regents, Bar Association members of their citizenship. Yes, I think we have to do that. And if the attorneys object, that's just too bad. Because, as you have always told us for a long time, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And I think all subsequent amendments have to become null and void, especially the 17th Amendment, which calls for the direct election of senators, thereby destroying the republic, because the states are the parties to the Constitution and they are no longer represented. Also, the income tax, which was never even voted upon, much less ratified, passed, that needs to go away. And what we need to do is restore the tariffs and duties of George Washington. Let me go back to the 13th Amendment for a second. It eliminates all attorneys being elected to the legislative branch and to the executive branch. No attorneys can hold public office anymore. That is the separation of powers, which was the purpose of the original 13th Amendment, because the attorneys got us into the War of 1812. So we had to put them in their place. Sadly, a year later, the Congress violated the 13th Amendment. I think we have to take it a step further. The Supreme Court legislated from the bench, saying that dual citizenship was okay, especially dual Israeli citizenship. I think we strip all Israeli duals of any and all citizenship and kick them out of the country. We don't offer them the choice between citizenship. We tell them, if it's not good enough for you, there's a reason for it. Go to that other nation of your choosing. You're no longer welcome here. You're not allowed ever to enter here again. You're not allowed to have any assets here, any property here. And frankly, that's one level of theft I will support. This theft that we've committed against Russia today, I don't support. Anyway, y'all can argue about whether or not you want to support taking everything away from these dual citizens. And no dual citizen should ever hold elected office or ever be granted any kind of security clearance. And they shouldn't be even hired in the bureaucracy at any level, especially with security clearances. Why? Because they have divided loyalties. So we value citizenship of the states once again. We do away with the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, because its sole purpose was to divide the nation further and hide the original 13th Amendment, which made it illegal for Honest Abe to hold the office of the presidency. Abe wasn't such a good guy. There's a lot of other things that we can do, but one of those is that not only will senators be coming from their state legislators, but they'll be subject to instant recall. If the senator who represents the state government, his state government, fails to vote as his state government wants to be represented, he's subject to instant recall. They fire his ass on the spot and call him home to the seat in the state legislature to which he had been elected by the people. I think we need to go a step further. No pay and benefits for Congress, and the pay and benefits for the senators have to come from their individual states. There's nothing that serves a man more notice to whom he is beholden to as getting paid directly from his master. In this case, I would suggest that the state governor and the state treasurer both sign the checks to the senators. Both signatures be on there. And then as far as benefits go, that's up to the states as well. As far as Congress goes, you were never supposed to have a professional politician. And so we screwed up when we allowed them to give themselves pay and pay raises and benefits. We need to take all that away, even retroactively, take it away from those that have gone before because of the bullshit they put us through, because of their lying, their theft, their corruption, and their sheer treason against the Republic, against the Constitution. They've all violated their oaths of office. And we need to actually have a treason charge for violating the oath of office. Likewise, we need to have it be a felony to enter the country illegally or to remain in the country illegally needs to be a felony, with one of the options for punishment either be requirement that you never can enter again, or at least an option as a possible remedy to stop these invaders. When the income tax goes away, and it should go away, the playing field inside the nation will be level. The average guy won't be held to task for doing all kinds of things required of the government because we have to respect his property. We have to respect him or her with whoever they want to hire. If there's are to be any property rights, then the state can't dictate who you're going to hire. We can't have that. And the government shouldn't be collecting any data regarding racial demographics or setting up protected classes. Everybody needs to be protected. And we need to remove the advantages that the nonprofits have over the common citizen. They're allowed to violate the laws and do things that the average man's not allowed to do at this point. So when we do that, we level the playing field inside the country. And we need to go back to George Washington's tariffs and duties at the border. I think nations, yeah, right. Companies, corporations like Apple should be hit with a 50% tariff and duty at the border immediately. If they want to bring it home and produce it all here and put Americans to work, they don't need to pay tariff or duty. That's the way it was right into the 20th century, the early 20th century. We need to go back to that, and we need to expand the tariffs and duties to include any service, any expertise delivered over international phone lines, delivered over the internet. Anything coming into the country needs to be tariffed and dutied at a full 30% of value that's payable into the Treasury of the United States of America. We don't have to jump at that right away, My suggestion is that we start at 7%, and with an increase of 1% a month across a period of 2 years to bring it up to a full 30%. Also, there will be no most favored nation trading status under any circumstances. We have to treat everyone equally. It's equal opportunity, not necessarily equal outcome. But we cannot be respecters of persons. We can't be biased. It's not biblical. It's not proper. So, inflation is theft, and this current monetary system allowed the evil one to establish a big presence here and take us over. Everything. Education institutions, the media. We have the best congressmen phony money can buy. At this point, because the Chi-Coms get most of the money because of the exports they give us, we have the best congressmen the Chi-Coms can afford to buy. And they bought them off pretty damn well. That Federal Reserve System is worse than any standing army. Far more destructive. We need to recognize the evil that exists among us. We're run by murderers, liars, and thieves. Fraud is a way of life here in the United States. And when the corporations can't buy off somebody, can't buy a patent, can't hide a technology, can't stop somebody from bringing it to market, they murder us. They've been murdering huge numbers of us. There's probably a hitman across this country every mile and a half, or maybe within a mile of everybody, so that they can be called upon and hired to kill anybody at any time immediately. I think in the movies they refer to them as CIA assets. And by the way, the CIA is not supposed to operate inside the country, yet every CIA operative, every CIA agent inside the country is issued a suppressor. Why? To help them kill us quietly. There should be no CIA. The British started our CIA as the OSS, and the British never relinquished it. They're still in there. And by the way, this Great Reset was not uttered by Klaus Schwab first. It was stated by the coming king himself, the king they're about to crown, that jackass. And Great Britain, Ephraim, is our enemy. We are Manasseh. And we do have to finalize this thing once and for all. I say we demand of the British, you return the documents from the Virginia state legislative sessions right away, or we go to war. Why did you take those documents? Why did you hide the vote on the original 13th Amendment? Why did you obscure that? Is that because our attorneys are members of your bar association, the British Accreditation Registry, or should I say Regency, since the regents rule this land in lieu of the king? Yes, what's the first thing that President Donald John Trump did right after he was sworn in? He got on Air Force One, that helicopter. Where did it take him? It took him to Langley, Virginia. Where did he go? He went to pay homage to the king, the real king. The CIA's been running this land ever since they whacked Kennedy. And so he went there to demonstrate the fact that he had their backs. That's what the public relations presentation was. I think it might have been paying homage to let them know to kiss their ass, to let them know that he knew they were in charge, they were going to stay in charge. Or it could have been a show of audacity, that he wasn't afraid to go into their lair and face them. Who the hell knows? We know they stopped flying overhead and dispersing whatever the hell it is that they do up in the air, those white lines and some of that stuff you can't see. He stopped doing that for the first 6 months of his presidency, at least 5 months, and then he must have got on board with them because they started doing it again. And by the way, the man's a liar. Warp speed. Bullshit. That stuff was in existence from 2015 at the very least. It didn't occur in 6 frickin' months. Liar. Deception. Just like Las Vegas took away the bump stocks. They didn't use no damn bump stocks in Las Vegas. And there wasn't just one shooter. That was their standard patsy that they set up for us. They had shooting teams, well trained. Count the number of rounds discharged at one string. Count it. Only professionals can do that. They had several shooting teams in Las Vegas operating that day. The FBI obscures another crime for us. They obscured the Kennedy assassination. They actually killed Martin Luther King. You like to call him Dr. Martin Luther King. He was a liar, a plagiarizer, so I don't call him doctor. You can call him Reverend. I don't mind that. But I really don't like that jackass being shoved down my throat. And the FBI, Hoover had enough of him, so he hired the bar owner across the street, shot him with a .30-06 rifle. It was an easy shot for him, 100 yards. Just put the crosshairs on his throat and let it go. That didn't kill him, though. They took an ambulance ride. And they didn't go to the nearest hospital, folks. They went to a prepared hospital where there was an emergency room physician waiting for him there with a pillow. So how long are you going to allow them to go on murdering us? They're doing it in a very large way these days. I'm not at liberty to discuss things here because we do not have freedom of speech anymore. Our First Amendment rights, including freedom of religion, freedom of speech, have all been curtailed. There is no press to protect freedom of speech anymore. They're owned and bought off just like the rest of the jackasses. All of their broadcasting licenses should be yanked. No excuses. No court hearings even. They shouldn't be allowed into the courts. They should be deprived of representation fully. They should be forced to go bankrupt. Hell, they say the same thing on every broadcast. Same damn words parroted all the way across it. And they do that right in front of you. Mocking you with their Mockingbird project. It's enough to rattle a guy, to make one kind of crazy. They've divided us and put us at each other's throats. The culprits, the benefactors. Who benefits? Qui bene? From all these wars. Well, the main benefactors are the money boys doing the lending on all sides to all parties. They're the main benefactors of wars. Who else? The medical military industrial complex. You better get used to calling it the medical, military, industrial complex, because that's what it is. It's not just a military industrial complex. Eisenhower didn't have enough broad enough vision to see everything. He didn't realize what was going on. All of the professions have turned against the laity. That phrase was uttered by Honest Abe. It's one of the few things he said that was quite true. The professions are turned against the people. They are allowed. They are given license to predate upon the public, especially the medical profession, which gets paid at 2.5 times. They insist that they be paid at 2.5 times the next highest paid profession, which are the attorneys, which have subverted our laws and our freedoms, helped enslave us, and they manage the plantation. And then you've got your third profession, which screws up this nation. And that would be, well, it's kind of a toss-up. That would be the psychologist, in my opinion, my profession. And the fourth profession would be the dentist, because they're required to put in poisons into us and support the use of poisons. They hit us with so many things. You see, it's the poisons that cause mental illness in the country. I'm not going to go into that here, but I guess I could tell you that most of it's caused by heavy metals. One in particular is associated with bipolar disorders. And of course, since there are no discrete categories, that would include all mental illnesses, including autistic spectral disorders, and above all, schizophrenias. And the culprit, most people, the medical doctors will say, is the manganese spiking of particular foods in particular, which loads up in the body and causes misfires in the brain. Some of the naturopathic guys, some of them will say it's because of a lack of it. Well, there is definitely an imbalance going on, but I lean towards I think the preponderance is the evidence is that there's too much manganese, and that's what's causing it. Folks, I'm a little late this morning. I didn't sleep well last night. I had to get up and do a fasting lab test. I'm getting older. If you want to support me, do like this. Leave a comment. Do share it. And go follow the link below and buy one of my Bibles. If you already have one, buy one for somebody else. I don't want you to just give me money. I want you to give you more value than you give me. And when you buy one of those Bibles, then those are prices that are available right through my link down below. It's the cheapest place you're ever going to get one of them. And I can assure you that at some point, the publisher's already told me the prices are going up. And we can't get the Bibles from Belarus again. We can't get them printed there again. That's over with. That's done with. So when this stock is down, you can bet the price is going to double at least. Go get one and get a spare. You're going to need it in some of these dark days up ahead. It might help keep you sane. That's what I claim does it for me. May Yahweh bless America and restore our republic.